Thanks again, Alex, for being here and spending your entire day networking amongst colleagues and students here on campus. We're going to move right into the panel. So we invite the panelists up on the stage at this time, and also any students who would like a seat. Come on, sit yourself in there somewhere.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. Good evening. I'm Steve Helmuth. I'm the Executive Vice President of Operations and Technology at the NBA. So I had the great fortune of working with Alex and his entire team down at the Orlando Magic. And my job was to really learn from what they were doing so I can store it forward to the next NBA arena, which will be in Brooklyn. So, and just a note before I get started is that I really think what Alex was talking to you about there is a whole new category, a very important category of advertising, right? So digital signage is going to be present across shopping malls, airports. It's only going to continue to grow. And we really haven't seen the evolution of how it gets sold. So the work that Alex is doing with his team, right? From selling signs to selling time to place-based audiences, right? That are demographically specific, you know? The difference between a heavy metal concert and a Disney show, right? To a Orlando Magic game, to a different event, right? All of that is very valuable, and it's going to be increasingly valuable into the future. Because I need to remind you that in terms of advertising, right, a lot of what you do, a lot of what we now do with advertising, especially in the app world, DVRs, fast forward, we're finding lots of ways to avoid advertising, right? So in these kind of place-based media situations, right, it's really a unique opportunity, and the cost of the television monitors is coming down significantly, right? The costs related to this are coming down. At some point, the same way with radio and television and everything else, networks are going to be formed. So the Orlando Magic will be able to tie into a network of sales to sell their kind of scatter as opposed to selling the stuff that they sell. This is going to evolve across cities and towns and universities, and it's going to be something that's going to happen to you. It's going to happen, you know, kind of during your lifetime. So just to walk the walk and talk the talk, although I didn't clear this with the business school, I'm going to give you my cell phone number so you can text me questions as we go, right? And of course, I still want people to stand up on the microphones, but text me as we go. And that way, I can include your questions, right, in the questioning as we go. So as they answer questions, I'll be reading those questions and I'll kind of put them into the flow. So this will be really interactive. So it's 973-271-1700. Used to be years ago, you could get a 00 phone number. But, you just told me we were dyslexic. Yeah, so it's very brave. I'm sure I'll hear from. I'm sure you'll hear from us all. Also, I thought I'd take an opportunity to congratulate all of you and the faculty here on your latest rating. You zoomed up the polls and you're number 7. So congratulations. I know that's a lot of hard work by the faculty, but I know it's the students that really did all the work that got to number 7. And I know that because I have a son in the business school, Nick Helmuth, so I know how hard you all work. So what I'm going to do is quickly, I'm going to introduce the panel quickly, and then we're all going to kind of go through and tell you a little bit about what we do so you can kind of get used to who we are. So I'll go right down the line here. So Jessica Ciccone is the Director of Corporate Communications for your New York Jets. Mark DiMaurizio and I worked at the NBA together, but now he's the VP of Technology Solutions for the Wells Fargo Center, of course involved with the 76ers, who are now number 6 in the Flyers. In the East. They're on fire. Garrick Hickman, Director of Operations for ANC Sports. What, I just skipped over? Ed Doherty.
That's right.
You all know Ed. He's the Assistant Professor of Engineering. And I was also designed camera systems, such as the fan cam. Bob Moore, he's the former longtime Director of Public Relations for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he's the current team historian. Perry Rubin is the Producer Director of Comcast for Comcast Spectacor, and he actually handles the Villanova games, right?
Correct.
When they play over at the Wells Fargo Center.
Yes.
And Peter Russell, who's VP Asset Management for ESPN, but he's actually in ad sales. Those are ad assets that we're referring to. So he's going to have a lot of interesting things to say about that business, a business that's growing fast, which is, obviously online digital media. To introduce myself, so I'm I oversee at the NBA information technology, broadcast, operations and engineering, and internet services for international. And I'm pleased to also work on the NBA's competition committee, so I deal with lots of technical issues as regards instant replay, statistics, timing systems. And to most of the referees, I'm known as the guy that put the lights in the backboard. That's how they, as I wander around the league. So that's kind of my signature. I also oversee the NBA's digital media archive, which Alex referred to. So it's what I've been allowed to do, because I oversee the information technology department and the video departments, is I've combined it into a digital media archive that we now share with the teams. So the games are instantly broken down. So we have literally 1,500 different clients, all the way from Nike to PlayStation to NBA coaches to NBA producers that come into the archive, get what they need, right, from all the angles that we've shot, and make requests from us of the high definition video, which we either get to them on disk, or if they have the proper network, we pump out to them. I've been at the NBA for 20 years. So, I took in 1998, I took a 2-year vacation and ran Major League Baseball productions, but came back to the NBA. I've been involved a lot in television production and live event production over the years, but what I really kind of came to decide in my career was that I really enjoyed building systems. That's what I really enjoy. So whether it's statistical systems or digital media management systems or networks for exchanging information, that's what I really like to do. And that's where I started at NBC Sports, actually, as a production manager. So I started out working on the 1980 Olympics, and I kind of followed a television sports production and operations career, and then kind of took a turn into information technology. And that's how my career has kind of developed. So I'll turn it over to the panel. So Jessica.
Okay, you pull this closer. Can you guys hear me? Yes. I'm Jessica Ciccone. I'm Director of Communications for the New York Jets. I oversee our PR business side, not on the football side, and I oversee our fan communications, particularly in social media. So a lot of what I do, and my colleague who's here with me today does, is talk to the fans, work with the team's social media strategy, and both on game day, not game day, in season, out of season. So I primarily handle those two aspects of our business. I have been with the team, this will be my 10th year, and I started in one of those entry-level positions that Alex mentioned, and I was doing something that I'm not even close to doing now. So it's been a great experience, great organization. Happy to be here today to talk to you guys in this Villanova.
Thanks, Jessica. I'm Mark DiMaurizio. I take care of the technology at Wells Fargo Center, where the Flyers and the Sixers play, as well as the Soul and the Wings and concerts and events. I take care of all the CRM systems, the marketing automation, the customer insights and analytics, as well as the interactive marketing for the Wells Fargo Center and all of the teams.
Okay, I'm Ed Doherty. I'm a professor in the College of Engineering, and I'm the director of the Engineering Entrepreneurship Program. And I'm taking attendance right now. But I'm also an entrepreneur. So most of my career I've worked in sports technology. Particularly, I guess for about 20 years I worked on the Skycam, which is the camera that you see in the NFL. And most people don't realize this, but one of the first places Skycam ever flew was right down there at the Villanova football stadium.
I'm Garrett Hickman with ANC Sports. I'm Director of Technical Operations. I oversee roughly 200 employees in a given year. We're in charge of installing LED systems within the arenas, menu boards, DLP signs, courtside, rotational. All of your signage within a building is what we're mainly focused on, as well as a software company, and trying to incorporate as many stats that the NBA likes to throw our way, and try and incorporate that into everybody's game presentation.
I'm Bob Moore. For the majority of my career, I was the public relations director for the Chiefs, which similar to what Alex did, where we dealt with free media, development of the internet site. Presently, just finished the development of the Chiefs Hall of Honor, which is a 26,000 square foot history of the American Football League, and also the history of the Chiefs franchise, including a large internet site.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Perry Rubin. I'm a producer and director over at the Wells Fargo Center for Comcast Spectacor. I produce all of the events that take place at the center there that are non-Flyers and Sixers, so including your Villanova basketball games, the Philadelphia Soul football, Wings, corporate events. Again, anything that is using the video board, using the arena bowl, non-Flyers and Sixers is kind of falls under my realm.
Peter Russell, just want to mention that I'm a 1986 business school graduate of Villanova as well. Met my wife, who was an 86 business school graduate. So Alex and I were talking about before, we're obviously well represented, and 86 was a great year, right? So I just want to get that out of the way. In terms of asset management at ESPN, what does that mean? There's actually a lot of parallels about what Alex was talking about. We manage the business side of the advertising sales business. So ESPN, just from the advertising sales business, generates $3 billion worth of ad sales a year through all our multimedia assets. And we manage that like a business. So we manage each sport individually, like the NBA, but we also need to manage it holistically, and it very much involves inventory management and dynamic pricing, very similar to what Alex was saying. So we could sell out Monday Night Football or the NBA Finals in 5 minutes, but we've got to move skating and all the other, and tennis and all the other events that are going on. So that's a big part of what we do on a multimedia basis. And we also get involved in P&Ls and rights negotiations. So we often are advising the company as to what a acquisition is worth as we're trying to acquire a particular sport or property.
Great, thank you. So I'm getting lots of messages. One of the things, on behalf of Jessica and I have to say, I should have said this to begin with, we're not authorized to talk about the lockout. You've heard about owners being fined to talk about the lockout? Well, for me, the penalty would be worse. It wouldn't just be a fine that I wouldn't be able to pay. So Jessica and I think we both agreed that we would stay out of the lockout, a lockout talk, because it's just not something that, it's a constantly evolving subject matter as we go. But riffing off of a question that was related to that, of course, Jessica did corporate communications for an organization that did Hard Knocks. I mean, how many people watch Hard Knocks? I watched it. That was a terrific television show. So, Jessica, if you can tell us, coordinating, somebody like Rex Ryan in corporate communications and in the age of Twitter and Facebook, could you just go out to talk about those challenges for us?
Sure. Rex is actually not on Twitter, one of our few people who aren't. But Hard Knocks was a great experience for the organization. It was definitely takes a certain organization to do that, to let people in, talk about technology, cameras, people you've never seen walking down the hall. You're not sure if they're supposed to be there or not. It was definitely not only was HBO in our house putting this on TV each week, but we were working with them to promote it across our social media platforms on Facebook, on Twitter. We did a promotion where if you watched the night before, you visited our Facebook, you could win a prize if you knew the answer to something that was on the night before. So we tried to integrate it across all channels, and it was a great experience. It's obviously great to let people see who Rex is, and that's exactly who Rex is. You saw it if you watched the show, and it was definitely good for all of our channels.
Great. So, Mark, Could you speak to some specific programs here? I know, Alex talked about ticketing, and programs that you're actively using now to fashion packages for fans, for the 76ers.
Sure. So some of the technology that's been emerging in the business operations side of sports, as opposed to the basketball or the hockey operations side or the sport operations side, is that we're doing a lot more analytics and profiling of ticket purchasers and things like that. So what we used to do from a marketing perspective is usually in the off season we would send out 60,000 oversized 3-color postcards asking you to buy season tickets. Now what we're trying to do with technology is we're trying to make everybody smarter and more efficient. So what we're doing is we take everybody that sits in the arena or the stadium, you sort of profile them by price level to get that sort of look of what they actually look like in terms of all these different attributes about them, their income, their wealth, their presence of children, where they live. You start to segment them, then you take your database and your leads and other folks, and you start to segment your different marketing campaigns and your sales campaigns. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make everybody a little smarter and faster. So you're still going to send out 60,000 direct mail pieces, except the message that goes on is going to be tailored towards that audience that you're sending out. And all these sort of things that are happening now is a shift in sports. Sports, I would say, is a few years behind other industries in terms of these sort of techniques. Of course, the gaming industry and Harrah's and things like that is sort of famous for all that sort of, because there's a lot more money involved in that, but we're getting there, and it's working well. And we're also doing a lot of regression analysis of individual ticket packages. And what happens is, Alex was mentioning that team that came in and they were sort of dipping down on their prices a bit. Well, there's certain, if you don't do dynamic pricing, we have discount offers and promotions and things like that. But what you don't know is whether those are cannibalizing your existing regular sales or not. So we sort of, tap into a lot of statistics and regression analysis to find out whether the programs that we're running in marketing are driving incremental revenue or they're cannibalizing our existing sales. And all these sort of things that are happening in marketing and sales is sort of new. It's, we're actually creating different sort of the core competencies and the skill sets that we're finding in the marketing and the sales departments are shifting. We're having sort of an operations feel to it. We're having some sort of analytical feel in the marketing department. We always considered the marketing sort of left brain creativity, but we're sort of balancing that now with sort of analytical right brain thinking as well.
Great. A question from the audience for Peter Russell. So Peter, for advertising, if somebody says they're considering a career in advertising sales, would you suggest they start in digital or they start with media sales in television or radio?
Very good question. I think if you had the choice or the opportunity, I would definitely start on the digital side. I think the important thing is to get that opportunity. As Alex mentioned, it's a very competitive field. So getting involved, and again, ESPN may not be your first stop. It's a very, very tough place to start. We were talking about internships. I would say internships at ESPN can be tougher than getting a full-time job. Not discouraging anyone, get a job in the sports industry. But I would probably start on the digital end. The growth curve is much, much higher. The value of specializing in mobile technology or video technology, I think is much more valued. That's where the growth is. That being said, in general, and this is something we'll hopefully touch on, in general, sports media has never been stronger than ever before. And one of the basic concepts I just wanted to share with you is that media is not a zero-sum game. There's a tendency for folks to think that, due to the advent of the internet and Twitter and everybody's engaged online and cord cutting and everything else, that must be taken away from TV and other forms of media. The opposite is actually true. Innovation is driving the sports business. And actually all these different innovations that are going on are actually adding to the whole. And I would just say that not only helps the TV business, that drives avidity. If people are more engaged with all these different mediums, they're spending more time getting to know the athletes better, getting to know the teams, from a social media standpoint, sharing information. That's going to drive TV viewership. That's going to drive people to the stadiums. So My other comparison is, it's not a zero-sum game, which we're talking about today, either going to the stadium or being at home watching TV. If we're doing our job and the teams are doing their job, we're driving each other's business. That's good for everyone.
Great. That's great. Garrett, I just got a question in for you. How are sponsors taking advantage of advanced technology? So do you feel that they're fully activating in the venues? Are you using the technology that your company and other companies have in place?
At the current time, the sponsors are still trying to figure out how to properly use it. They're still playing with it. It's still beta for them. They're still trying to see, should their logo stay up a little longer or should it be flashier? It's one of those, they're still balancing back and forth, and just as they start to get it, it's one of those, then something new comes in and then they have to play with the new toy. So it's one of those, it's still in its infancy, but eventually I think the sponsors will catch on and figure out the proper balance between flashy with holding their logo up on the screen.
All right, a question for Ed Doherty. Ed, how did you, the audience question is just, how did you get started thinking about things like the fan cam? I mean, what led you to start thinking about how to solve problems with technology and viewership in venue? Because ultimately you're delivering, well actually your thing is, but you're delivering to the people at home better pictures, right?
Yeah, I guess I got interested just a few years out of school. I was actually writing articles for the Inquirer about radio and stereos systems. I was doing reviews for them, and they asked me to do a project looking at baseballs. So Steve Carlton was complaining that year, who's a great Phillies pitcher. They did a great year the year before, and this year he wasn't doing so good. So basically that was my first job, was to look at how the baseballs were different one year for the other. And then I kind of got the bug for doing that. So from then on, I was watching and listening and trying to look for opportunities to get into the technology of sports. And I worked on a number of projects, including, as I mentioned earlier, the Skycam and the Wavecam here at Villanova's Pavilion. So it was really something that I like sports. I wasn't that good at playing it, but I found a way using technology to become involved with it.
Great. So Bob Moore, two-part question. Is Jamal Charles the greatest running back you have ever seen? Hey, I must say, he was for my fantasy team. Here's a question, but I'll kind of add a little bit to it. The question is, what effort do you make to control the off-field actions of young stars? But I think Bob can also give us a viewpoint on something else that I'm interested to hear his answer. So what we're seeing now, obviously, is that leagues and teams now provide a ton of information to the media, right? Because the media is advertising in your traditional newspapers is stressed, right? So the local television reporters and the beat reporters just aren't there. So the teams and the leagues have stepped into the kind of gap, right?
Right.
And on the other hand, you've got bloggers at home. So anyway, go ahead, Bob.
Well, since about 1990, print had been in decline for about 10 years, and since that time, it's even declined further. Media aren't traveling with teams any longer. Coverage has changed, but at the same time, it provided an opportunity for the teams to get their messages. Just to give you some idea, in 1960, I think the New York Times front page averaged something like 14 printed lines coming from the mouths of, say, one of the people from some company. By the time we've reached the 1986, it was down to 6, and sound bites were down to about 8 seconds, with about 52 seconds being provided by the commentators. So as media began to change and as it began to boutique a little bit, teams saw this as an opportunity to become involved and to tell their story. We were very involved in messaging as early as 1994 when the Chiefs site went up. And since then, and as I look out at the audience today, I think the greatest opportunities that are available on the free media side would come in the internet. Some of the clubs in this NFL right now have as many as 5 to 6 people involved on their internet sites. You see an explosion of video on demand. When we first started our site, we were very heavy into print. But as the time has passed, you see much more in the way of video being available to anyone who wants to come online and learn about your team. So consequently, you have an opportunity to tell your story where before you had to rely on media. You become very competitive with the media now, which of course in many instances enrages certain members of the media. But that's not your problem. In some instances, you're out there to tell your story. You also have an opportunity to do it in a number of ways. You become, in essence, a publisher, as it will. You become to do columns, you do video, you do blogs, and so consequently, at the end of the day, you may be sending out information on iPhones, you may be sending it out on blogs, you may be sending it out on video, but the point being is you're sending it out with the message that you want to send it on. And I think the big change that's coming on, of course, with the rise of some of the sites like Deadspin and some of the others, there's a lot of irreverence in this business. So you, as a developer of the internet, can't fall back and be a homer to the extent that no one believes you. If you're going to tell a story about a team's loss, you have to do it in the context of why the team lost, and you have to be a legitimate news source without taking it too far. As far as players are concerned, I think it's incumbent upon all the teams today to train their players so that they're capable of talking and being able to communicate. And consequently, the easiest way to do that is online as well. We help the players with their online sites in some cases. We try to make sure that they have their spelling right, which is not an easy task, as you can imagine. We try to make sure that they're not setting out and telling things that they shouldn't be talking out of school on the team's preparations. But these are all things that have taken place now in this world we live in. For example, if you go to an arena, the autograph is now dead. Why do you want an autograph when you can take a picture? So let's assume you're at the stadium and the players are coming out. You don't see people going up saying, "Can I have your autograph?" Why? Because you want to take a photograph of the guy with your cell phone. So you see a complete change in the way people are producing things. But you have to see, as a team today, yourself, you're in the media business. You're telling your story and you're going out. As far as Jamal Charles is concerned, Jamal wouldn't be a guy I would put in front of the media too often. He doesn't say a great deal, and we're going to need a lot more training to make him anything as far as a public figure. I think we'll let him do his work on the field at this point.
I've got actually a couple of questions for Perry Rubin. So one question is, as a game director, you know, and you direct a lot of things, you know,
Sure,
including the Villanova game. So as the HD video in the arena really changed what you do. And the other question was, do you really want people using their smartphones, or would you rather have them watching what you do?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, the HD video no doubt has made things much more entertaining in terms of the fan standpoint. We're actually in the process of converting everything into HD down at the center, and it's an exciting process. I really think that it has enhanced the fan experience. There's no doubt in terms of the in-bowl experience. As has been mentioned a couple other times, it's enhanced the home experience as well. You watch these games in HD. Nobody wants to sit at home and watch a non-HD broadcast of a game. It has just completely changed the field of sports. But I think, you know, for what I do, my job is to try and entertain the fans in the bowl as best as they can using the best tools possible. So, you know, I'm absolutely all for whatever gives the best fan experience, and, you know, HD video absolutely does that.
Great. Here's a question for the panel. I'll just leave it to whoever wants to pick this one up, and it might be you, Perry, but we'll see.
Sure.
What are teams doing to get people to the games? You know, to get them, you know, off their couches and into the venues.
I mean, I could speak a little bit about that. You know, it's marketing, and you know, I know you touched about the cell phone usage, the smartphone usage as well. Teams, I think, are embracing all sorts of technology. You know, from what I've seen, at first, teams might have been shying away from smartphone usage and shying away from Facebook and Twitter campaigns. I think everyone has adapted it and started to definitely embrace it, and in fact, enhance that into you know, what's going on in the arena. Somebody else could probably speak a little further about that, but.
going along with that, with the new technology, going to the $3 popcorn. Now you can change that in the bowl itself instead of having that backlit sign that used to be there that had to say Pepsi or Diet Pepsi. You now have a full 360 ring that you can advertise 980 feet saying Sixers tickets are now, I don't know what a Sixers ticket goes for, but whatever that price is. And say in the fourth quarter, you can then change the price. You can always change whatever you're displaying on in your arena instead of having a backlit or a rotational where you're stuck with whatever is on there.
All right, another question from the audience. What sorts of jobs are available for electrical and computer engineers in the sports industry? And what's the best place to look for those opportunities?
Garrett, that sounds like you.
With what ANC does, we deal with a lot of servers, networking, internal networking, building servers from scratch. What we do with all of our employees is they start from the ground level. We very rarely move you right into a third level tier. We start you at the bottom, building up from the ground, and we like to see what the new employee has to offer to us. Instead of saying, you're out of college, okay, you can do this. We want to see what you can do. And there is a lot of growth with the electronics, and it's going to keep growing from here on out.
Yeah. I would similarly agree. In the television business, we're undergoing a transformation from television-specific equipment to generic computer gear, video servers, right? So my digital media asset management system, the history of the NBA is actually stored on LTO4 tapes. So it's a very high-density computer tape, the same ones that are used to store your, medical information or your insurance information. It's generic and it's very inexpensive, right? And the prices are going to continue to be dropped down. So we're making a kind of a massive change into that. So I know that you all are very connected to digital media, but great television always starts with great television pictures, great producers, directors, people that cover the game. But it all is going to require the support of computer, electrical, IT professionals into the future. There won't be a chief engineer running ESPN in the future. It will be the chief technologist will be a computer-based IT person who will actually run the organization from the top down. So there's a transformation underway right now. So there's great prospects for whoever asked that question. I've got an NHL fan out there that wants to know if the NHL will return to ESPN, and how can they improve their in-game experience. I know Jessica and I wouldn't comment on the NHL, but since you're neutral down there with
I'll comment more on the second part, but there are active negotiations going on for the NHL rights right now. The NHL is out of the major sports, the youngest skewing sport out of the major sports. We had it for many, many years. It was a great piece of identity for ESPN2. It's for hockey fans out there, it's a great product, particularly in person, and it's a great product on TV too, but I think there's room for growth there. We would love to have it where, all I can tell you is that we're in active negotiations. That's all I can really comment there. In terms of how can you get fans out, first of all, it is one of the best sports to see live, but I would take, again, the tips of my classmate over there, and Alex, is that really understanding the fan is that something that at ESPN we take very, very seriously is our mission is to serve the fan, and where that may sound very basic, it's extremely important. Listen to what Alex was saying earlier today, where years ago, and there's a lot of teams that still don't do this, in terms of, our tickets are a ticket price. Our food is what we serve for food. We want you only watching the sporting event that you're coming to. Well, that's not really serving the fan. I remember a few years ago taking my son to his first Yankees game. Fortunately, we had good seats. We went down to the executive suites down there. As we were walking in, Andy Roddick was in like a fifth set tiebreaker against Federer in Wimbledon. Now, you're talking avid Yankee fans, all glued to the set watching TV. That was a great service that the Yankees provided at the bar, because they were serving sports fans in general. And I think that's the big change now, is that now a fan's going, I really want to watch that Wimbledon match. Hey, I know I could pick that up because based on my seats, I could have access, or I could bring my smartphone with me. So it's really about serving that fan and not pushing to what only the team's agenda is, and really listening to that. I think for a great sport like hockey, if they continue to do that and manage their finances over time, which I think got them into trouble a number of years ago, it's a great sport. It's a wonderful sport, but they've got to listen to the fan.
Here's a question from the audience. So the first part of the question is television advertising in decline? Well, I would say no, that depends on your television ratings, how you're doing with your ratings. I'd say television advertising is actually selling briskly across, NBA, NFL. I know that for a fact. For the second question, I'll throw out to the panel: what kinds of social media initiatives have been successful, have moved the needle for your organizations so far, or in your job?
I guess I'll start. We recently, in our playoff run this year, what we try and do is we experiment with different things, whether it's actual, an actual physical item they're going to win, whether it's an experience. And 9 times out of 10, we've seen experiences, really move the needle. We did follow us through the playoffs, and each week, if you followed the Jets and all the family members of the Jets, you were entered for a chance to win to go to that weekend's playoff game. Whether it was Indy, whether it was, eventually Pittsburgh. So that was very successful. Clearly there's marketing around that. It's not just, you're out there on Twitter, you're putting it on Facebook, but, we really try and look for some of those wow ideas. But, we also do some simple ideas. We'll do, polls, and we'll get people talking about, who should we draft in, a couple weeks, and you'll get fans, engaged just by talking football and getting them excited about it. So, it really, for us, it's not so much the one-offs, it's more the 365 engagement and making sure that in season, out of season, lockout, no lockout, winning, losing, that we've engaged the fan and we continue to do it and give them something new each week. So, for us, there is no off season in that respect, because we're trying to blur that line between the game, the home, and all the experiences put together.
Similar to what Jessica was saying, social media for the Flyers and Sixers is not a strategy in itself. It's a tool. It's part of our marketing and sales strategy. It's a very important and very visible strategy. But we usually have a social media strategy as part of our sales, our marketing, and our customer service programs. For example, a couple examples is there's a misconception out there that the Flyers tickets are always sold out, that there's never tickets to get. So we constantly see ticket brokers tweeting their URLs and things like that on how to get tickets. So we sort of have to manage that and say, primary tickets, meaning, sold by the Flyers, are still available. So we're constantly doing that. From a marketing perspective, similar to what Jessica was talking about, it's a conversation. Asking questions is a great way to engage your fan. We found that it's not a great sales tool. So people that think, there's going to be this massive tipping point, this massive ROI with social media, maybe one day. We don't see it yet, and we're not treating it as such. We're treating it as just another way to engage the fan. And then from a customer service perspective, we're owned by Comcast, and Comcast sort of has that famous Comcast Cares Twitter account. So we're doing the same sort of thing from our customer service perspective, where we have all of our customer service representatives for all the teams have accounts, and they let their season ticket holders know that they're available on Twitter, as well as anybody who finds them, and we could solve service issues that way. So it serves as another channel of communication as well.
I think from the secondary market of selling tickets, which I think most of the teams are engaged in now, I know that what's happened over time is people have found themselves getting a lot of counterfeit tickets and so forth. And the clubs, even though they may have tickets available, realize that they had better get in the secondary market as well. So you'll see a number of teams already have their sites, and they'll allow their season ticket holders to market their tickets through the team. That guarantees the teams that will make sure that these are legitimate tickets, and that could guarantee that they'll be doing a favor for the season ticket holder who may not be able to make it to every team. I would think probably at this point a good number of the teams have that opportunity or have that option on their website, so that you can, say, move tickets that you don't want. What's happened, of course, is that if you don't get in this business, you're going to be in competition against all these other places that are out there, StubHubs and so forth, that are selling tickets, your tickets that your season ticket holder has sold to them.
I would just add about social media. While it still has a ways to go from a monetization standpoint, I think it's critical because, as we know, sports is all about community, and social media very much brings that out, whether it's a virtual community, whether it's high-fiving a complete stranger at the arena, creating that bond. So social media is very important for you ESPN fans. We have Section 140 while the game's going on. You can comment. So I think that's a really integral component, and I just do want to mention one about the first question about ad sales. Back during the financial crisis, ESPN, media as a whole, took a huge hit. Sports in particular took a very big hit because the automotive industry fell hard, and automotive is one of the big categories in sports. I was particularly concerned about the major events because as all these big companies were scaling back, I don't think they wanted the PR that they were spending big money behind major events, sponsorships of major events. That has come back significantly. If you look at Super Bowl this year, broke an all-time record. BCS on cable for the first time. Big numbers. World Cup from a multimedia basis broke all-time records. Again, that's technology driving that. All these different tools engaging people for longer periods of time. And for those in the advertising business, ratings are about reach and time spent viewing. So as technology has grown and all these tools are out there, people are spending more time engaging with the teams. The last thing I would say about sports in particular, why sports is so strong and there's so much equity, we talk about this all the time. We talk about that live matters. And this relates to technology with DVRs and how that is impacting the television business in general. For all you Villanova fans out there, if you don't have tickets to the game and you're watching the game, show of hands, how many of you guys watch a Villanova game tape delayed? I'm not talking 5 minutes tape delayed so you can go through the commercials. I'm talking about half an hour tape delayed.
Next day.
Very, very rare. So sports has to be consumed live. That presents tremendous equity to the fan, but also to marketers. Because if you're Taco Bell and you're launching a new taco, or if you're a studio and you're launching a new movie on a Thursday night, you want your consumer base to see it on a Thursday night. You don't want your consumer base to see it 3-4 days later. And entertainment programming can be viewed sometime later. So that's one of the great, points of difference that sports can bring. And marketers are seeing that now, along with the different content that's out there with questionable content, with user-based content or whatever. Sports provides that storyline. It's known. It's live, and that's why the sports business is thriving. And more marketers are throwing their money behind sports than ever before.
Yeah, I would agree with Peter. You've seen a lot of stuff's been written for years now about interactive television, right? But the fact is, we have the statistics from Nielsen. Close to 66% of the people watching an NBA game also have their computer open or their iPad. And the iPad and the new pads that are coming out are a ramp. It's going to take that to 80%. So what we found, and this is Eric Shanks, gave a talk about this. He's now the president of Fox. He was the president of DirecTV. Is that people use interactive TV, the features that are in DirecTV or Comcast, to kind of go horizontally, right? To kind of say what other channels are available, what other games are on, what's the other court that I want to watch at Wimbledon, that's the way that's used. But when people want to go deeper into a sport, right, they go to their computer. They go to their smartphone, whatever, and they dive deeper. So we're, as are the other leagues, we're designing those experiences so that we can give people more and better information on their computers and their laptops while they're watching the game, so they can dive deeper for information. That's as Peter says, it's about stretching them to watch the game for another 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, and that's part of the engagement. I mean, just to follow up on Facebook and Twitter, so we actually have a social media memo that goes out every day at the same time. Just came out about 20 minutes ago, that does our social media count. So the NBA's got 62 million people that have liked the NBA on Facebook globally. That includes teams, the league, and the players. And then we have 33 million people that are liked us on Twitter. So you have to be very careful with the audience about how you message them. And there's an interdisciplinary group at the NBA under my boss, Adam Silver, that when we do work together, people on my team work on it, from communications to marketing to interactive services, to message them. So we try to be gentle. I mean, you have to be an authentic voice. You have to give people good information. Hit the like button and you can see what we're doing. But one of the things we're doing now for the playoffs is we're actually writing an application with an outside company to translate people's information globally and then let them know where they can watch the games, right? Whatever country they're in, whatever time zone they're in, direct them to where they can watch the NBA. So that's like so is it a direct monetization? No. Is it a really important thing to do? Yes, So, and I think, Facebook's only obviously going to increase in importance.
If I can say something about small business, from the small business perspective, like Twitter and Facebook, it really puts you on the same playing field, a level playing field. So we can have a Twitter account and a Facebook account that looks just like the NBA, kind of. We have the same level. It's up to you to get enough friends and twerps or whatever they're called to work with you. But basically, that's something that's wonderful. And even the websites, it's so low cost to develop your own website. You can have a brilliant website. It's up to you to bring the traffic there. You can have a great blog and all, but that's another wonderful thing from the small business perspective.
And it's really allowed players to grow their own brands. It used to always be about in football, the quarterback or, your highest draft pick. But now guys who, maybe, backup can have relationships one-on-one with their fans, whether that's on Twitter, whether that's on Facebook. And a lot of them are really growing their own personal brands that way. And, again, there's a good side and bad side to that, because as someone had mentioned, you want to make sure that they're still on message. It's still as if they're talking to the media when they're talking to a fan. You never know who that fan is. But it's really a way for players to, really get to know their own fan and build a secondary brand beyond a team or beyond even a league. So it's really a huge opportunity for them as well.
Ed, a question for you. The Skycam's been a spectacular success in football. Is there such a thing as a moving camera that will be a smash hit for basketball?
Well, that's a very interesting question for me, because we developed the WaveCam, which is intended for indoor use specifically for basketball. We've got a couple different versions of it. Most people don't know we have a version that can come out of the scoreboard, and we have one that goes up and down the sides of the court. So as I'm sure you know, Skycam has been used in basketball, and a lot of people like it, some people don't. The particular design is that you have to have 4 cables, and it's just a little bit awkward. So thank you for asking that, but the WaveCam was designed specifically for basketball and indoors, and we have an example of it, of course, here at Villanova in the pavilion.
Great. Here's a question for Mr. Russell. Is advertising on reruns of pro sports as valuable as advertising during live games? I think you probably pretty much answered that, but.
We actually do cut down versions of live games at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And we do combine that with the live event. And people do watch that. Despite what I said about sports being viewed live, some people do watch that. I will say that for many years, I'm sure many of you watched it, Sports Center in the morning was the taped version of the latest Sports Center from the night before, the 1 a.m. And about 2 years ago, we said, what are we doing here? We're a network of live sports. And now, as you know, from 9 o'clock all the way to, I think it's 2 o'clock now, it's all new live shows because sports never sleeps, right? There's always a press conference or something going on. So more and more we do live programming. A very high percentage of our network is, because that's what we're about.
Right. Here's can you talk about the role of YouTube in sports? Some leagues, the NBA, is very successful partially because it allows the uploading of clips. What's the rationale? Why should you leave them up? What's the rationale behind other entities leaving them up or rejecting them? All right, so I guess that's me. We have allowed the uploading of clips on YouTube. So, it's you know, it's where people go to get video, right? It's where they watch us. We're very successfully monetizing video on the team websites and on and on NBA Digital, which also encompasses Yahoo Sports. So that's working for us. It's working for us on a global basis. But what we're looking forward to with YouTube is there will be technologies in the near future that will allow us to, on an automated basis, identify these clips, right, and then monetize them. So it's just on the horizon. So it's called fingerprinting technologies. And I've been experimenting with it now for 2 or 3 years in terms of trying to find pirates, and I actually work with the other leagues on this. So you take a fingerprint of a live feed, right, and you reduce it to an algorithm, right, and then you hunt for that algorithm, across the web. That's a technology that already exists with a company called Mobile, and we're talking to YouTube about it so that we can, in short order, claim all of our video on YouTube, and it could be a rather significant monetary source, for the NBA. So YouTube's definitely a part of our plan going forward because, user generated stuff generated by the fans is things that other fans want to see. So we're not opposed to it in any sense. I don't know if there's anybody else who want to talk about the role of YouTube. Great. Let's see. I think we touched on it, but actually we've touched on it a number of ways, but I've gotten so many texts about it. Let's talk about it specifically. I've gotten a lot of texts on how do I break into the sports industry, and Alex, you talked to a group of people earlier, and I'll throw it down the line to the panel. I'll start with from my perspective, 2 things I would say. There's lots of opportunity in broadcast television, right? If you have an idea, if you're an engineering technical, if you can apply yourself with an IT kind of background, right? There's lots of room for growth. I mean, there's lots of jobs that are getting ready to turn over in the broadcasting industry because of the baby boomers kind of moving forward. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity in the technical area there. And to follow up on what Peter said, I think understanding digital media, how to present and sell digital media, which is not an easy thing to do or understand, is going to be very, very important because the hockey stick's about to happen. What's better than delivering to an ad of somebody that watches a video clip? You know who they are, you know exactly what they watched, exactly what they did, you understand their behavior. It's very valuable to advertisers. But there's this thing called, that Google bar, called DART, right? It's a very complex program, and I've actually told a number of people that are interested in this, the best thing to do would be to master that program, right? To understand digital media, before you go into sales, right? To get that kind of granular experience in how digital media is presented and sold, before and it'll enable you, I think, to launch yourself up the ranks. But I'll just go down the line on the panel because I know you're all interested in this question because I've gotten a lot of texts on it.
I think it's about flexibility and it's about availability. I think that you might not have, there may be a job that's available, you're like, not really what I want to do, I don't want to go this route. But if you want to be in sports and you're looking to get some experience with a team or a league or, even a minor league baseball team, if it's something that lets you get in, one of the leagues or one of the sports, I think that it's good to be available. There's a lot of part-time opportunities I think that people can also look at and really kind of, I think it's all about, okay, I'm not going to get my dream job the second I walk out of school. It's about, do I really want to do this, and do I really want to try and get sports on my resume? And, it's sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's, patience, and it's about, I think Alex put it well, relationship building, and I think flexibility and availability of you to these places is important.
I'm sure everybody's going to have a pretty similar story, so I'll just do one particular tactic, and that's for us. Usually it's internships. We usually hire, we obviously want to make the best hire as possible, and we want to minimize the risk of our hire. What better way to minimize the risk of your hire than to look at your interns? So if you sort of make the top quintile of the interns, then that's where we're turning. So usually I would say 80% of our last hires over the last 6-8 months have come through our internship program. And I can't speak for all the teams, but I know teamworkonline.com is where most of us post all our internships. And you'll find a lot of sports jobs on that website.
Yeah, I think in general, and I tell this to students all the time, is you really should have an idea of what your dream job is. And if it's in sports, that's great. If you want to be president of the Orlando Magic, have that in mind. And then just don't give up. Just be persistent. Keep going after it, go after it, go after it, and never give up. I think that's the key.
I mean, with my job, I get thousands of resumes a year. And the thing is to stay persistent and understand. What I like to tell people is you have to stay available and understand it's a second shift job. If you like to go out partying on a Friday, Saturday night, sports may not be where you want to go, because as everybody knows, most of the sporting events happen roughly, you start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you may get out by 10:30 at night. Just make sure you stay available, and definitely look at the internships. When I first started, I interned down at the Wells Fargo Center. From there, I was hired part-time by Arena Vision. From going from Arena Vision, I was then hired part-time by A&T Sports, led into a full-time position as a local operator. Now I'm director of the entire company. So it's just keeping your options open and understanding what's involved in sports as well, if this is the direction you want to go.
As an old coach used to say, the best kind of ability is availability. And consequently, the reality is there's 32 teams in the National Football League. And consequently, there aren't going to be a lot of opportunities for everyone. But you shouldn't just shoot for the National Football League or for the NBA. You should actually look at some of the colleges who have opportunities now. There are certain areas in sports that have more opportunities than others. Marketing would be one. We talked about sales. And I think the other thing is to face the reality that we all face today, which is, and this isn't meant to be a criticism, nobody is looking for anybody. We get hundreds we sent them ourselves, hundreds of letters to people. And I talked to a student, what did you do today? Well, I sent out 35 resumes and a couple cover letters. I said, you really didn't do much of anything. Well, what do you mean? Well, you didn't call anybody. Are they looking for someone? Are you interested? And they should be falling over you when you do get a chance. You may do it for free. And I would suggest anybody who's really crazy about this business would do it for free. And some of the jobs that they'll ask you to do won't be particularly wonderful jobs. But consequently, if you're any good at anything that you do, they'll eventually come to the conclusion that you're a guy they can count on. And then we fall back on all the old favorite ones. You're reliable, you're dependable, they know you're going to be there. You may not even have the greatest skills of someone who maybe be in that building, but you're a guy that they can count on. And you're not costing them anything either. So consequently, you may get the job over someone who has far more ability than you have, and maybe better at something. And then you have to have a couple other basic skills. You have to be able to, for example, if you're dealing in some of these jobs, I think you have to have the ability to write. I would encourage anybody to go into the internet side of things, because I think it offers some great opportunities for people to produce things. As I said, they're doing video now. There's people writing online. If NFL Talk can be sold to NBC for the amount of money that it was sold for, and we can see the business that this guy created, anything's possible. So I think it allows you some great creativity. But I think the thing to look at as well is you're young now, and I always tell everybody, if you're on the road by the time you're 30, you're in good shape. But when you're 30 and things are stumbling around and it's not happening for you, then I think it's time that you need to start thinking about something else. But I think if you give yourself a little bit of a break, if you're coming out of college right now and you're scared, you don't know where you're going to get a job, and this is what you want to do, don't fear completely that you're going to fail completely now. You still have some time to do it.
Bob, if I can, sorry, add something to that. Bob's mentioned this twice already, and it's a pretty important point. It had nothing to do with technology, but it's a great point. He mentioned content creation. Now, over the last 6 months, 8 months, I've noticed a lot of shifts within our company as well as other B2B companies, but content creation seems to be a new area in marketing where they're starting to hire a lot of ex-journalists from print and from areas that they're starting to create content. And why that's different is you'll understand this. The sales cycle of 10, 15 years ago used to be someone would call a company and inquire about their products and services, and that salesperson used to run down the whole product brochure for them. Well, obviously that's changed now. The first thing that people do is they go onto Google and they start typing in Acme widgets, or they want to find out about widgets. And the consumer is the most informed they've ever been about anything. So now when you call Best Buy or whomever, you actually want to talk about the Sony XBR 55555. You know everything about it. The salesperson's role has shifted now. No longer are they that information provider because it's all out there. So what B2B companies and B2C companies are finding out to do is they have to provide that content on the internet to get it out to you. So they're using blogging, they're using social media to start engaging in conversations, and they start creating journalists and content creators about their company and about their website. One of the stories I heard a while ago was, I don't know, a year and a half ago, when Paris Hilton got busted for cocaine in Vegas. Now, I forget where it was, but the Wynn Hotel tweeted right away and put out a press release saying Paris Hilton was barred from the Wynn Casino and Hotel. Well, obviously all the news people picked up on that. Well, she wasn't even at the Wynn. In fact, she's part of the Hilton family. She's not even going to a Wynn. But the fact that the Wynn just started feeding content out there saying, she's barred from the hotel, they just jumped to the top of all the Google results, and they were in all the things. So companies, what happened was 4 months ago, Oracle purchased a company named Market to Lead, a marketing automation company. Well, another marketing automation company started publishing industry thoughts on that. So what happened was, when the New York Times and other people started writing about that acquisition, they started going to Google and they were finding this other company's CEO's blogs about it, and that's who got quoted in the paper about that acquisition. So they're starting a different type of thinking in marketing regarding how to get your name out there, and a lot of it is companies are hiring their own content creators to do that, and it's fantastic what's happening now with all these different sites, is that marketing and shifts are starting to buy it, and we're heard about the financial, or nobody's traveling with a team anymore. We have content creators for the Flyers and the Sixers now that actually provide the content to the beat writers that don't travel with the team anymore, and I'm sure a lot of teams do that. But it's definitely a up and coming area.
We'll continue, but Mark, you just answered a question from the audience. So thank you. Just not going down. Somebody said, I have a sports blog, and how can I make my sports blog grow? How can I make it relevant? I think you just touched on the major areas there.
Beat the other people to the comments regarding the events that are going on in that industry.
So when the search happens, you pop up. Exactly. You're the first one on the scene.
Talk about Paris Hilton or Charlie Sheen. Start winning.
Or if there's an event in sports that you're writing about, you're there first, you've got the words right. So you're essentially doing your own search engine optimization.
That's what NFL Talk is. That's what NFL Talk was when it started. I mean, I have no idea who this person is from NFL Talk, but now he's on television and he's making a lot of money. And
he's created content.
Created some stuff.
Yeah. And these people work hard too, no question.
Yeah, he does.
So we're moving down the line. We're getting
not to sound like too much of a broken record, but as everybody said, these internships matter. Most of our staff, be it our full-time staff, our freelance staff, I would say 85% of them were interns with us at one point or another. And as people have left, as the department has grown, as our needs have grown, we've brought these people on to do all of our various tasks. They might have started as interns logging tapes. Again, as everyone said, doing the jobs that no one else wants to do, getting the jugs of water from downstairs and filling the water cooler. But it really out. I could tell you a funny story about internships. one of our interns, we brought him on as a freelancer. He was always on time, did everything with a smile, did everything great. We knew that he was going to be a great worker for us. When one of the projects we assigned him to do is we needed him to videotape some tractor trailers from the roof of our building, and we put him on the roof of the building with a camera and a set of tripods and said, "You're going to be up there for 12 hours. Here's a bottle of water, and good luck and go."
It's peanuts.
Well, he did it with a smile. He didn't complain about the hours. He didn't complain about the rate. He did it with again with a smile. That same guy, a position opened up. Actually, the old job I used to hold down at Old Dominion University. I used to work down there. Position opened up down there. My old boss contacted me and said, "Hey, do you have anyone that you can recommend?" And the first person I thought of was this other guy. And it's not official yet, but it looks like he's a lead candidate for this job. Why? Because as an intern, he came in on time, came in early, stayed late. As a freelancer, he did the dirty work. He did it with a smile. And it's really those kinds of things, as everybody said about availability, you have to put yourself out there. When it comes time to hiring, again, whether it's an intern or a freelance worker, we want someone with the availability. I don't want to have to fight someone for a job. I'm calling you because I need you to help us. We expect you to do it willingly, to do it with a smile, and that does lead to other jobs. So really, just put yourselves out there. There is a fine line between constantly calling people and saying, "Hey, what's going on with that job? Just want to see what that is," versus following up with emails and all that. The best thing you could do is find somebody within that company, go on to a site like LinkedIn or any of these other social sites, and maybe try and find someone who isn't right out as the HR director who's dealing with 1,000 resumes on their desk. Maybe you could find someone that works within the specific department in that company that you want to be in, and try and get a hold of them. Send them an email, try and get their phone number, because chances are, if you can get a hold of that specific person who is in need of the job or in need of the employee, you have a better chance than just a pile of resumes sitting on some HR director's desk.
By the way, I don't know if I'm stating the obvious when I say clean up your Facebook as well, because all the hiring managers are out there doing Google searches on you. So they're seeing your Twitter account, they're seeing your Facebook account, and if you don't make all your pictures private, it's going to tell a lot about you, and that's what the hiring manager is going to use as some information.
Yeah, I mean, just to tap off that, we do search. We are putting our employees in Alex's building, in somebody's building, so we expect a clean background on you guys. Just another thing is, say you're interning with Comcast Spectacor. I call Perry up and say, "What do you have?" So you're not just always interning with Comcast Spectacor. They then have a wider range of where you possibly can go from there. So it's just, yes, you're in with Comcast Spectacor, but you can broaden the horizon off of that.
Yeah, and I mean, that is a really good point that you bring up. Networking is by far the best way to get another job. You always want to talk nice about people because you never know who's listening, that kind of old adage, and it's true. You never know who somebody else knows. I might know somebody else who knows somebody else who needs a job. And that's a true thing,
Yeah.
Garrett. They come to us, we'll go to them, vice versa, and that happens in plenty of other organizations. As I said, my old boss came to me and said, "Who do you recommend for this?" And I was more than happy to recommend that specific person. So networking is very, very important. You never know who somebody else knows. Yep. So you should always. It's kind of stating the obvious, but you should always be on your best behavior and 110%.
Doesn't hurt to look at the website either.
That's true. You'd be surprised how many people don't know what your company does. So you do video production. What teams do you service? Really? Can you? Wells Fargo Center Philly.com. Punch it up. You can see exactly what teams we service, what events are going on, what time, what concerts are coming through. Exactly. A little bit of knowledge of the company. I don't want to waste my time talking to somebody who is looking to just fill a credit on an internship as opposed to somebody who really wants to be there. I'm there 50, 60, 70 hours a week sometimes. I need someone who wants to be there as well. I don't have time to babysit someone. I want someone who is just as passionate about doing what I'm doing.
I just want to add a couple of points here and really challenge you all. First of all, our President CEO, George Bodenheimer, who is a tremendous corporate executive in any field, who's only in his mid-50s, as many people know, started at the company in the mailroom and started at the company driving Dick Vitale to the airport, and he's in his mid-50s. I'm not saying you all have to do that, but I challenge you all to ask yourself, for the sports business, are you in it for the long haul? Or any field that you want to go into. Are you in it for the long haul? Are you going to become a student of the business? I didn't mention before, but I'm starting my 18th year at ESPN, and I've interviewed literally hundreds and hundreds, as many people on this panel have. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, well, why do you want to work here? Well, I love sports, or I'm a people person. That's great, but we expect that. How are you going to stand out? Do your homework. Become a student of the business. Go to conferences. Do all the extra work. Research the company. Articulate why you want to be at this company. Not, I love sports. We know there are a lot of sports fans out there. What's going to make you stand out as a person to drive through that? On the point about what field, again, I know Steve's a big fan of this. I would lean towards digital, because there are a limited amount of teams, there are a limited amount of networks. You may eventually aspire to get there. I would say not only digital, but it doesn't initially, if you take this route, have to be sports. If you learn the technology side of it, that's easily applied to sports. Particularly in the new media, if you're an expert in mobile or video or ad serving, you come to one of these companies and now promote what you've learned, you've got a great angle. And again, there's a huge, mobile in particular, that field has a huge growth curve. So there's many more of those jobs. I would just counsel you to kind of balance a real small company on the upswing with try to get experience with a company where you're going to learn basic business experience too. We were talking about at age 30, I think early on in your career you want to get a little bit of both, right? You want to work with a new media company, but there's a lot of training, just corporate training in general, whether it's presenting, whether it's networking, managing your business in general. I think you want to try and balance that. So do your research. And again, that's part of being a student of the industry.
I have another question from the audience. For Mr. Moore, there are sports purists that want to keep a traditional sense in sports. Where is the balance between tradition and innovation in changing the game?
I assume they mean tradition in the way the game is presented.
Right.
Well, I think that's a difficult question, because essentially what we're having today is a far different game. I think it's possible to know too much about a game, and I know that sounds ridiculous coming from someone in public relations. I think going behind the curtain, you can go too far. I think there was a time when the game was perhaps a lot more exciting when we didn't know as much about some of these guys as we do. I can assure you there's some people out there that you may think are wonderful people, but if you knew them, you probably wouldn't care much for them, and they happen to play our game. So I think that you measure essentially who you want to be out in front of your game, who you want to be representative of our game. And my goodness, if we knew what we know today about Joe DiMaggio, I don't think we'd find him a very pleasant person. So consequently, I think that you can go too deep into media and show too much of the players and too much about the game, and it becomes far more technical. I think there's some basic narratives you want to continue to sell about all our games, and I think those are the ones that you follow. I think Steve Sabol, who's probably done as much for the National Football League as anybody, and was when he started in this business, it was pretty much hands off. He was told to go tell our stories, tell about the game. And essentially, Steve told me there's only about 9 stories you need to really concentrate on. And those are the ones you continually tell over and over again. And having also had the experience of working with a team in Hard Knocks, they got to see how terrible we really were. And so by the end of the year, when we won 2 games, it wasn't a particularly charming picture. Now, we had a couple of great stories in about our team, and we learned about some of the guys, and it was a very entertaining opportunity. But looking back on it now, it might have been to our advantage not to have done it. So I think that there are some basic storylines you want to keep, and there's some other things you want to stay away from. I saw a couple players, for example, from one of your Big East opponents on television the other day. I assure you that if I was the public relations person, I would not want them to be on television talking about very much. It didn't say very much for the university. So I think it's incumbent on people, if you're going to put them out in front of other people, especially at a college, you should work with them, have them trained to some extent, or make sure that the line of questioning is something that they're going to feel comfortable with.
If I can say something about tradition versus technology too, is way back in the old days with Skycam, when it first came out, a lot of people hated the Skycam and a lot of people loved it. But it's funny, when we saw that people were so passionate about it, we knew we had something that was interesting because people were really passionate about it. And then over time, you know, people started to like it a lot more. But that was sort of an interesting thing. And tradition changes over time. Now you can probably hardly imagine a game without having a Skycam view in it.
And for us with innovation, you know, we want to go where the fans are. So if the fans are using the new technology and the fans want to follow you and like you and, you know, watch you with, you know, at the game live, we want to make sure that we're in those spaces. So it is a fine line between too much access at the same time that you want to let the fan in. That's who we're working for. That's who, you know, we go out there on Sundays for. So it is a fine line, but it definitely, if the fans are there, we want to be there too.
Here's a question from the audience for Peter Russell. Why can fans only get 3 hours a day of Masters coverage? It should be covered the entire week, 24/7. I think that's from a golf fan, but of course, in Peter's defense, I'll let him answer it, but they did do that for the World Cup soccer.
Oh, yeah. We do that with most sports, as you know, whether it's the BCS or any major event. I mean, we will promote the heck out of that sport from, you know, for 12 hours at a time. I mean, just ESPN taking over the BCS, you saw that. But in terms of Augusta, the answer is simple. They are in control. They have something very unique and very special, and they want to maintain that. You may know that CBS has had 33 one-year contracts with Augusta. So that's their way of controlling it, is that they're on a one-year contract. So don't screw it up, or else we move it to someone else. Obviously, they've abided by it, but they, as you may know, some announcers are no longer on the broadcast. It's just, that's how, it's kind of like Wimbledon, even more so. It's this really special thing. In fact, I was on the couch the other night as they were promoting it. My daughter, who watches a lot of sports with me, not a huge golf fan, as soon as the music came on, she goes, oh, here we are again, Masters. But it's that special brand that they know. So it's limited supply, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why the NFL is such a popular sport. Limited supply, so they want to just dose it out. You know, they don't want to overexpose that special event in the Masters. So it's not our choice. And I would say the Masters is a very unique event for us, where we don't sell the advertising. There's very limited advertising. ESPN really serves as putting that event on the air during the week. CBS still has on the weekend. So they have their limited supply of advertisers that are there through the CBS partnership, and we put that on. So it's a very controlled environment, and it works for them, for that particular event.
Great, thank you. I think we're at this. I think this will be the last question. So if anybody has a burning question that I didn't ask and wants to step up to the microphone, I'll offer it to you. But it's for Perry. How do you keep fans at the game interested without bothering or alienating the diehard fans that just came for the game?
You know, that is a really good question, and that's the struggle we battle with, myself and the other producers that are down there. No matter what the event is, whether it's a college event, whether it's NBA, NHL, there's two parts to every event. There's the game, and then there's what we do. You can't please everybody. We take it as, or at least in my job, I take it as, I'm here to try and help the fan have a good overall experience. So while the game is going on, I hope you're there. I hope you're glued to the to the action on the court, action on the ice. When replays come up, I want you looking up there. We'll get those replays up there, get you a different angle, different view. When it comes to then when it comes to the timeouts and half times and whatnot, it's also our job to try and entertain you. A lot of fans don't want to be entertained. A lot of fans want the purity of the game. But from what we've found, most of the people that coming out to the games do want to be entertained, or at least that's our objective, is overall entertainment, including and above the level of play that is happening down on the field or court or whatever the surface might be at that particular day.
I know. I just share. I know Alex. Alex looks at detailed studies, from his fan base of the quality of the in-arena experience, right? So, and I look at, I don't operate a team as Alex does, but I look at the information as well, and we find that that overwhelmingly the fans love the entertainment, they love the music, they love the games, they love the entire game presentation, because while the guy that's the hardcore fan, might not look at the stuff or care about it, his wife, who allows him to buy the season tickets, loves it, right? Or the insurance company, or the law firm, or that bought the tickets, right? That sends that person to their one game per year, absolutely adores it. So it's really, we just get overwhelmingly positive response for the kind of entire wraparound experience, that the NBA and the teams have evolved to. And we at the NBA, the teams originate all these ideas, and our job is to share the ideas amongst the teams. It's really the teams that do the work. So we're out of time. So it's
on the network.
It's 7:30. So thank you very much.